Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Appreciate you taking the time. So just a brief intro on ePerformance, who's going to be presenting to you, and the agenda for today. So my name is Michael Manishin. I'm the Vice President of Client Services here at ePerformance. Joined with me is Divya Ramachandran. And she's the lead product owner. She's going to be taking us through kind of a sample of the demo of the system that we're going to be presenting here today, which is called Grants Plus. And we're going to be giving you kind of a brief overview, an introduction to the software, and show you some of the features that will help with the granting process. So first and foremost, a little bit about us. We have 20+ years experience in the granting space with medium to large enterprise grants management solutions. So we have a lot of experience in many different types of grant programs. We know that each one can be different. And we pride ourselves in knowing kind of the cycle of the grants process, speaking the same language as the people that are doling out funding. We promote better practices in grants management, and we're recommended by Microsoft for our solution to all levels of government and different departments. And we're proud to say that we're most, if not all, of our staff is certified Microsoft professionals as well. So what is Grant Plus? Grant Plus is a cloud-based software platform. It runs on Microsoft Dynamics 365 and the Power Platform. So we've included a few links, and we'll share this deck with everybody after the fact. If you want to do a little bit of reading on that, if you're not familiar with them. And basically, we use this platform to support the automation of government grants management, just to make the process a little bit simpler, less manual, and for the things that you can expedite, we tend to do and work with you on doing so. It provides a full range of functionality for grants management end-to-end workflows, including everything from the application process all the way through to performance tracking and reporting and everything in between. It's designed for the Canadian government and can be further configured to meet your unique requirements, because as I mentioned before, we know grants, all different grants projects and different departments have their different measures that they need to implement. So our platform is flexible enough to include those things and customize it to your needs, as well as, we have an offering within the baseline solution to do most things in grants, because, as I've said before, we have experience in the field, and we've made sure that we have something for everything, if you will. So something important to note here is, as I said before, it's designed for the Canadian government. So we align with the Treasury Board models and standards for grants management. We've had a seat at the table with Treasury Board with their data model, et cetera, and worked with them on making sure that we align. And what you can see is an illustration of an example of one of the departments that we've worked with and one of their delivery models. This was Western Economic Diversification Canada. We made sure that, through the guidance of Treasury Board, they had this model that they needed to follow, and we made sure that they followed that in alignment with Treasury Board. It aligns with the 8A model for grants and contributions, which was derived from Australia and US governments. So on multiple areas, many different alignments through grants automation and the model programs that are a good baseline to follow. So we have two more kind of for Grant Plus. We have two solution delivery models that we typically follow. The first is a software as a service delivery, where we come in, we implement our software for you. We also host the environments that are necessary for the software, and we provide customer support and success services for that implementation. So basically a one-stop shop. You would come to us, we would handle the rest, work with you on implementing the software, and then host it for you and be there for support if required. The second very popular model is the client-hosted and managed solution, which is we are in charge of the implementation or working with you on implementing the software into your environments. We deploy, and then the government department or the client would host their own environments in their own cloud instance, and then we would provide support if and when some questions, concerns, anything comes throughout. So we were there to support you along the way. So those are our two most popular delivery vehicles, and yeah, I'm going to go into a few examples of those. So the first up is NRC Killam. This was the software as a service model. So basically, NRC Killam. NRC came to us with a relatively short timeline to get a grant system up and running. They had it needed to serve as kind of an application portal, so for the public to come in and apply to the program, as well as a portal for external peer reviewers who need to now then review those applications and provide feedback and context. As well as the processing of those applications and the external reviewers' feedback in the back end, and all the way to funding the grant in the back end as well. So we launched this program within a tight timeline. It took a matter of weeks. We built out a fully government compliant grant portal. What that means is it was accessible to screen readers, etc. As well as bilingual in both French and English. So those are important to note. Design, implement an iterative and incremental delivery model. So basically what this means is we broke it down to bite-sized chunks that the implementation team, both us and the client, could digest in very easy components. We made sure that we focused on the areas of magnitude, the areas of priority first, delivered those, tested them, then moved on to kind of the next phases, and a brief description can be found at the bottom of the slide there. So that's our first, one example of our first model. And then the second example would be SDTC, where this is an example of that second model, where this is client hosted. We were just part of the team to implement, and then part of the team to support after implementation. So similar to the previous, it's a grants management portal. They have reviewers. It's bilingual. It's accessible, and we were able to kind of modernize their legacy system on the cloud, move it to the cloud, and as well as kind of implement new features and functions that they didn't have before for their granting needs. So very quickly, that's a good example of the second option here. Now, you're probably wondering or curious about how we package these. What's a rough order of magnitude? What's a rough kind of pricing scheme for these things? This slide kind of details a brief description of that. So we'd have the program level, which you see on the left-hand side here. This would be ideal if you need a single program up and running. It's basically everything that you would need to get one program up and running, essentially a basic application form, a basic review form, and then the processing in the back end. And then the help desk and support for that as well. We give a range here because it's kind of incorporating both the models that we just spoke of, either the fully hosted or the hosted on by the client. So that's the example of a simple kind of implementation. And then of course we have the enterprise level on the right hand side, which is ideal for if you need multiple grant programs onboarded. You have different contribution programs or a portfolio of programs that you need to get on the system, or that you're migrating to the cloud, and you can benefit from some of the features that Grant Plus has to offer that Divya will be taking us through in just a moment. And this gives you kind of an idea of size and scale of what that would look like if it's multiple programs, and giving you kind of a range of what it would take to get off the ground and running for that. So if there are any questions on this, I'd be very happy to answer or hear your questions, either in this session later on, or if you my email's at the bottom of the slide, so feel free to reach out at any point. And now I think I'll hand it over to Divya to take us through an example of the system.
Thank you, Michael. Welcome, everyone. What I'll do is I'll start with a quick overview of what Grant Plus, the key business features, and then walk you through one of our sample programs that we've set up. Then provide you also some more context in terms of other key features that we have in the system. And then we'll open up the floor for questions. For the feature overview, we have two sections. One is the front end user portal where the funding applications come in. And this is where like you as program officers will be getting the end user applications through the portal. You'll be setting up your funding opportunities, which will be displayed to your end user or your clients. And this is where they will log into this application portal. They'll create their submission portfolios. Through the cycle, they'll have the application reviews also set up where your reviewers can also log in and put their scoring to each of the submissions that have been assigned to them. And there are also other options in terms of like a chatbot in terms of frequently asked questions, which I'll show you shortly. There's different aspects related to the notification center, different application form options, which I'll walk through as well. And the second aspect to the entire system is something called as the Grant Plus Program Office. So this is more like what you would call the back end system and the CRM system where the grants management application processing happens. And as Michael had shown you before, it follows the 8A model where you have the outreach aspect, which is the leads and opportunities, for example. Then you have the application assessment, which comes in from the portal. You as program officers would ideally be looking at the assessment of the applications in this stage. Then you have your funding decisions and agreements. So then your review processes, your review processes and agreements and budgets and payments would be applicable in this phase. Then you have something called as monitoring. So once you've granted the funding, you will have options in terms of monitoring. You will have payment options. You may process amendments and then probably set up another program for the next annual cycle. We also have options in terms of DocuSign and automatic assessment in terms of notifications, and I'll walk you through some of that as well. So just a quick overview of the key business features, which I've kind of already talked about. One is the program management, where we can set up programs of funding opportunities, and these can be like either fixed period from like one annual cycle, or they can be a continuous intake, which just indicates that there is no end date as such. And multiple sets of programs or multiple funding opportunities can be live at the same time on the client facing portal, depending on the needs of the program authority. And then you have, as I indicated, there is the application intake. And this is something that we set up as bilingual as English and French, where the end users can come in and put their applications in terms of what they would like to apply for in terms of funding. And a lot of these funding programs also have eligibility criteria that are set up. So if an end user doesn't pass the eligibility criteria, they can't actually submit the form. And then depending on on the program, you can have different kinds of applications. You can either have application forms that are same for all programs, or you can have application forms that are different for each of the different programs. Once an application comes in, as I mentioned, there is the program officer CRM backend system where all the processing happens. And if there's incomplete applications, for example, an amendment can be requested, and there are different decision phases in terms of how those applications go from start to finish. And I'll walk you through some of that as well. And then there's, of course, the administration and the performance monitoring of the applications as they go from application received date to the application close date. Just a quick overview of some of the challenges that we've commonly heard about when it comes to grants management systems. So one is there's always multiple funding requests coming in almost like at the same time. So there's usually a peak period or during an annual cycle, and it causes a lot of administrative burden, and it can be quite overwhelming. And a lot of application processes are still like using paper methods, right? So it's not online. There's a lot of paperwork involved, and 80% of the data coming in is not completely streamlined. There's a lot of missing information when it comes to the application process, which causes a lot of additional administrative work, because you have to go back to the applicant to ask them for additional information, which then delays the entire process. Then there's a lack of standard business rules or maintenance of information, because sometimes departments have multiple systems which don't always interact with each other properly. So there's a lot of processing time, and it limits the availability of data and the options for reporting, which can be cumbersome. The other challenges in terms of like grant programs are unique. Like even if there are common elements related to multiple programs, most of the granting programs have unique, even small, tiny, unique elements, which make them hard to maintain if it's all like if it's in paper forms, or if it's like administrative burden for program officers to maintain. And then there's a very low yield in terms of investment if there is no automation set up. The benefits of using Grant Plus like when you think about the challenges, is Grant Plus solution is very easily configurable. So we use Power Apps, as Michael indicated, and which is a very low code and configurable system. So it has a lot of opportunity in terms of scalability, where you can have multiple programs and multiple processes configured at the same time. And then because it's in the cloud, there's a scalability in terms of storage space as well. Then there's programs and departments that have standard business models, which can vary between departments. So Grant Plus has the option to make the configurability in such a way that each department can have its own rules incorporated, and then have that common information or the data that's processed across these departments flowing through to different decision phases. Like you have your program submissions coming in, you have your agreements, you have your post-award and agreement monitoring phases as well. So a lot of that can be standardized and put across multiple programs. And because it's a Microsoft product, it has a very large range of configurability in terms of integration to other Microsoft products like Microsoft Teams, SharePoint, and other options available related to Microsoft Office, Outlook emails, things like that. And then it also has something called as Power Automate, which enables easy integrations to other third-party systems like DocuSign, Adobe Sign, SAP systems in terms of financial integration for payments and things like that. It does improve efficiency by 30%, and we've assessed that information because the intake applications becomes a little more streamlined when using Grant Plus, and I'll show you what that means. And it facilitates the reporting in a really streamlined way as well, because there's a lot of options in terms of configuration for reporting through out-of-the-box dashboards that's provided in the system, but also through Power BI, which is another integrating aspect to the Grant Plus solution. It also allows for a lot of real-time options in terms of implementation, which I can talk to you about as well while I do the demo. And then, as you know, it is something that's public facing. So if you have a portal and if you want your applicants to put in their applications online, the front facing application is following out of the box. It follows our Government of Canada web toolkit, but we have options in terms of customizing it to your specific needs. So if you want to change the logos, if you want to change the font, if you want to put your own branding to the portal, that is also an option that is available that can make it highly customizable from your perspective. Okay, so I'll go into the demo, and what I'll start with is I'll start with the Community Capacity Fund. Actually, I'll just follow up with this one and then go into the demo. So I'm just using a sample program that we've set up called as the Community Capacity Fund. The funding program is now open for any applicants who want to come in and register for the organization that they're applying for, and then putting in a request for a funding for this program. And then what we'll do is I'll show you how it flows through from putting in the application and then following up into going into the program office and then making sure that the program officer has the options to see the information that is provided. And I'll also show you how the review process happens. So the funding application comes in, but then there's a peer review process that happens. And then once the review process is completed, there is a clear winner who's identified. And once the winner is identified, there is an agreement that happens between the winner and the program office, which then indicates that the applicant actually has to provide a report because they want to see the progress of how the funding the amount has been utilized. So I'll just dive into the demo right off the bat. So just to start off with, this is what we call as our front-facing portal. This is our home page. I have logged in and registered as an applicant called Veera. And what I have done as Veera is also I have registered an organization. So just to start off, I have set up an organization as Perception. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it up. I'm going to start the application process using this organization. The other option is also available where I don't need an organization. I, as an individual, can also put in a funding application. But for just the demo purposes today, I'm going to use the organization as a starting point. So now that I have an organization set up, what I want to do is I want to go in and see what funding opportunities are available to me as an applicant. So when I go into funding opportunities, I see for my organization, I have these 3 open funding programs. But because I looking at this Community Capacity Fund, I see that this is what I would like to apply for. And as I mentioned before, it is a bilingual portal, so we can set it up to be bilingual in terms of English and French, and also in terms of setting up whatever information you would like this to be. So as the funding opportunity detail is set up as for the sample program, but the configurability around changing this text and changing how the display of the detail can be varied across different programs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply for my Community Capacity Fund. And as soon as I apply, I, Veera, as the applicant, see that there's an eligibility questionnaire. And because there's an eligibility questionnaire, I'm restricted to only be able to apply if I select yes to each and every question. So in this case, if you see, if I say that I'm not a Canadian established organization, I just cannot proceed. So the eligibility criteria has to be mandatorily filled in and accepted in terms of agreeing to these conditions before the user can even submit and go ahead with the application. So in this case, I'm just going to select one of the options. I'm going to click submit and go ahead with my application process. So I'm just confirming I'm creating an application for this organization, for this funding, and for this primary contact. And I just click validate and save. And what it does is, as soon as I finish as soon as it finishes validating the information, it opens up the remaining, important pages for this funding program. So these are the pages that are applicable to the community capacity fund. However, it's, as I said, it's very highly configurable. If these are not the pages applicable for the program, they can be modified to be applicable for the particular program. We can also put the exact same pages from one program to the other program. It doesn't have to be different, but we've also noticed that for a lot of our clients, programs have unique elements. So a lot of the fields may be common, but there might be one or two unique fields that are different between programs. So that is highly configurable. It provides a lot of flexibility in terms of providing what each page should do and what each page should be in terms of even the required fields versus the non-required fields. So example, all of these fields are required. And if I don't select any value, the system actually tells me that, hey, you haven't filled this out. Please fill in each of these fields and select each of the values available. So in this case, perception, for example, I put in set of values, and a lot of this is also configurable in terms of the fact that these are drop downs and text fields. They can also be different elements in terms of different types of fields. So in this case, I have a text set, couple of text fields. I have a couple of drop downs, and I have a couple of radio button options. But I'll show you in the other pages, there are other options as well, and you can put them as conditional fields. So for example, I have a project title here, and I also have a conditional field in terms of project type. So example, if I select feasibility study for project type, that's fine. But if I select other and for project type, what it does is it opens up a second field that is mandatory because you want the user to provide that information to you, because that's the information that is important from you as a program officer standpoint. So by putting the required options in these fields, what happens is the program officer gets a lot of clean data versus having to go back to the applicant after the submission and say, hey, you missed this information, you forgot to add this information. So providing this right off the bat to the applicant reduces a lot of the manual work and the manual assessment that the program officer has to do during the application submission process. So there are different options again here in terms of like date fields. We can put in multi-select options. So if I want to say I want to select 2-3 different options, we can also do that. And then we also have currency values. So in this case, I'm just going to select and show you what the currency field looks like. And as we okay, text and just some additional text here as well. And as you notice, you also have a character limit on your text fields that can be checked when the applicant is adding the text, and it shows them the limit of how many characters are left. So in this case, I'm just going to validate and save this page. And as you'll notice that the currency value is set up, and because this is a bilingual page, the currency value displays in French formatting as well in the way it is supposed to. So I'm just going to go back to the English and show you one more thing on this page. So as you can see, I finished validating and saving 2 pages, the organization information and the project details. And if you notice, like the gray icons that were present in these pages before have now turned into green check marks. What this indicates to the user is they filled out all the required information and the validation has been successful, which is why they have the green check mark. And if you notice on the top, it also shows the progress percentage. So 40% of their application process is complete. And if they go to final review at this point in time, they'll also notice a message to them saying, hey, you have to fill out all these mandatory pages, and then only then will the submit button be enabled. So I just wanted to go back and show you a different option here. So in this case, when it comes to the budget, for example, you can see a budget, I would say this is called a subgrid or a table that is available to the user, and they can put in the value manually for each of the options. and save that. So again, in this case, it would be saved as currency values. We can also put in additional rules here where it calculates the total on its own. It probably doesn't require each and every year to be filled in. So everything is in mandatory. And it can also be set up to have at least one of the rows filled in and made mandatory. In this case, I have nothing mandatory. So I'm just going to click validate and save, and it will save my page. The other page option is having a lot of these funding programs have a certain set of rules that you want your you want your applicant to provide attestation on. So you want like an agreement form signed. So in this case, we have something in this format where we have a digital signature option, where if they are agreeing to these set of conditions, and it sets up a declaration accepted on or a digital signature identification. So in this case, the program officer knows that they have agreed to this. We can also put in conditions where they can't submit if they don't agree to this. So in that case, there is never going to be a case where the applicant doesn't provide an attestation and finishes off a submission form. One other item I wanted to show you in terms of configuration is documents. A lot of funding programs require a certain set of mandatory documents. In this case, what we are saying is you have to provide a minimum of one of these documents that have been identified. So for example, a copy of the board of directors or financial statements. And what happens is a lot of the times the applicant doesn't read through that, I have to fill out or provide this information to finish this application. So what we can do is we can set it up to be a mandatory option. So in this case, adding a value is not a mandatory option. So, but what we can also do is have it set up to be mandatory so that the user has to put in the document that is provided as a mandatory option to the user. So this is another thing that can be set up where documents are mandatory to the user and it can be provided at the time of application processing. So in this case, I have finished off all my pages. I have shown it shows it is 100% complete. And if I go to my final review, it actually shows the submit form button. So I'm going to just submit my form, and this finishes off the applicant process where they have finished off the application and it is submitted to the program officer. So now the second option in terms of the grant program system is the back end that I had mentioned before in Power Apps. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the back office, and this is what the back office looks like in terms of it shows in a different format. It's not the same format as you see it on the portal. And I'm going to just refresh my screen. And there's a different set of dashboards that we can enable and configure. So maybe I'll start with the system dashboard. So there are system dashboards that are easily configurable. They are available. We can set them up to be as and based on the information that is required. So in this case, there is a program officer dashboard, which looks at different sets of options. It looks at reviews, it looks at reviewers, it looks at the active and all submissions. But there's also a second dashboard that I can set up specifically for managers. In this case, for a manager, the manager doesn't need to see the exact same information as the program officer. So the dashboard can be configured to be slightly different or depending on what the manager wants to see. Another option is also you having Power BI as a dashboard. So in this case, we are using a non-licensed version of Power BI, but it even with the non-licensed version of Power BI, it has a lot of amazing capabilities in terms of getting the analytics for the data that you are looking at in terms of your funding programs, in terms of your submissions, in just getting the information that you need, and also analyzing and creating trend reports. So I have a dashboard, for example, here in terms of the different programs, but I also have statistics and other elements that I have put in from my financial perspective. So as you can see, like using Power BI, you can have different calculations, different trends that are visible to you as a program officer. And then you can also download this because it's the unlicensed version right now. What I can do is, instead of sharing it directly through CRM, I can download it into a PDF format and share it via email. So it has a lot of amazing capabilities in terms of analytics through the Power BI options that are available. So I'm looking at the dashboard. I'm seeing there's a new so there's a new community capacity fund. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go into the funding case. So this is where I will see my submission come in. So in this case, I have a new application that has come in through the funding case profile. I'm just going to go into it. And what will happen is, this shows from a funding case perspective in terms of what the applicant has put in. But if I want to see the exact information that the applicant put in, what I will do is I will go to the submissions. But before I go to the submissions, I'm going to show you something called as a decision module. So a lot of programs, like, you want to have a certain set of decisions that you want to make, or a certain set of stages that happen during a program cycle. So in our Grant Plus system, what we do is we utilize something called as a decision module, again highly configurable. In this case, I have a certain set of decisions for this community capacity fund that will um, be initiated. And as soon as I initiate these decisions, a certain set of processes are uh, instigated. And then what happens is, as I go through each and every stage, we have the process in terms of what happens next, what you want triggered in terms of notifications. If you want, like, for example, if I wanted to trigger a notification to my manager saying I have started due diligence on this case, it can happen through the decision process. And then you can also set it up to be highly configurable in terms of, like, what kind of decisions you want. In this case, I have due diligence passed as my, or amendment required as my next phase. But it could be based on your program's needs or your department's business rules. These decisions can be configured to be whatever it needs to be. And it can be like between 5 to 10, or between like 400, which ideally wouldn't be the case, but there is a lot of options available in terms of setting that up. So now that I've started my due diligence, what I'm going to do is I want to review the sub application that came in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my submissions. And if you notice here, I see the information that came in through the portal. So me as a program officer, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to review everything that came in through this application. So the person put in the project information, they put in their requested amount, they put in the budget information, and I will also check their declaration. Okay, they have declared that they accept all the options, and then they go to the supporting documents, and they're also able to view the documents on the that the applicant has put in. So this enables the program officer to see the data that is available, that has been put in through the application process. Once the next stage would be to set this up for review. So I want this application to go ahead. I have reviewed everything, due diligence has passed, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this up for review. And then what will happen is, once I set it up for review, I can add a reviewer to this submission and set it up to be generated for a review process. So I have a separate logged in user here who is a reviewer. And I'm going to show you, it's very similar to the applicant process, where reviewer, except the difference being the reviewer has two options, additional options available in the menu, where they see a reviewer profile. This is again highly configurable. If you want different fields, different options to be provided here, this is something that can be provided in terms of what fields you as the organization want your reviewer to provide. And this is another area where where the reviewers provide their conflict of interest declaration. So if they have a conflict of interest, or if they do not have a conflict of interest, this is a digital agreement on their part in terms of saying they can go ahead with the review process. The other aspect to this, as a reviewer, I can also see my reviews. So this is a review that has been assigned to me. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this up and say, hey, I don't have any conflict of interest. I declared that already, and I'm just going to review. And what happens is, the review process goes ahead, and the applicant actually, so the reviewer actually sees the applicant information because they have agreed to the review process. And that's how the reviewer gets the information from the original application that was provided. And then there's a separate page to provide their scoring system. So this is again highly configurable. There's a lot of different options that can be set up. In this case, we've set up to say provide your review in terms of these fields, and then provide your review in terms of additional documentation if you need to. So once a review happens, what will happen is we have our, I'm just going to go back to my page here. We have our funding case profile here. I would say review is completed and go ahead. And then what I want to do is I want to tell the applicant, assume that I have reviewed all the different, as a program officer, I have checked up all the different submissions that have come in, but Vera submission has won the funding program. So I'm going to say funding approved for Vera. And then maybe after like 6 months or so, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up the decision to say request a progress report. So I'm going to request a progress report from Vera. And then what happens is when Vera goes back to my applications, I'm just going to do a quick refresh here. What she sees on the portal is she doesn't see the application form anymore. She is requested to provide a progress report. So this is another aspect of things where even after the application funding process is completed, you still want to monitor the funding deliverable. You can set up the option to say interim report needs to be provided. And then once Vera provides that, I'm going to say interim report, that is added to the system or the submission file as well. So I have interim report here, and this is usually how the standard process end-to-end flow happens, where they go from application to review and to the progress report. But this is just for the sample program. If there are other business processes, if there are other decisions that happen, we can easily configure that as well. And in terms of the processes or the business rules that are applicable to your particular organization. I wanted to show you a few other aspects in relation to the webinar today. So we have a few additional features I'd like to show you. So one thing is enabling a chatbot. So something that we've seen, we've all seen a lot of websites have chatbots enabled, which allow the end user to provide a simple FAQ, for example, and help them through the process of logging into the system, or providing them like some of the main criteria that are applicable for a funding program. So this is something that's currently still in preview with Microsoft, but this is something that is again configuration. As I said, the system is very low code. There's no coding as such, but it's more like setting it up using conditions and setting it up using something called as topics, and relevant to the organization that is using a chatbot like this. So as you can see, it provides you a different set of options in terms of what the applicant is looking for. You can set up videos that they can view. You can just set up a set of topics in terms of providing steps. And then you can also send them information in terms of what they want to do in next. So in this case, as the information is provided to the user, they've accepted what they want, but they do not want to continue, and that's how the conversation ends. Another option to show is AI. So AI is something that everyone knows is widely being utilized on a daily basis as we go along. So there are certain features in AI that we've looked into and are looking into as we progress through the year. Again, something that's in preview through Microsoft, but we've managed to enable a few key elements in terms of setting it up for the system. So in this case, we have something that's the AI translating the information that's provided to it. So as you can see, the activity summary and the activity results are provided, and it generates a French translation. But in addition to that, it actually provides a sentiment. So a sentiment is where it's assessing whether the text is positive, whether it's negative, or whether it's neutral. In this case, the first activity summary is neutral, like the tone is neutral for the information that's provided. But the second one, because it says does not show a good impact statement, for example, the tone is negative. So this allows the program officer, for example, if they're creating project reports, if they're creating summary, they have the option to assess this through AI, get an initial assessment done through the model setup, and make the changes, and then do the review process after that initial assessment is done, and then provide the information accordingly. Another feature for AI is the optical character recognition, if you've heard of that. So in this case, what we're going to do is we have a manually written reference letter coming in for a research granting process. So we have this manual letter. What we do is we store it in the system as a PDF file. And using AI, what it does is it extracts that handwritten information and puts it as text into a field. And then what the program officer can do is they can review it to make sure that the data is as it should be. There's no personal information provided, if there is any redacting of any statement that needs to be done. But at least from a manual process perspective, the AI model is setting it up so that the program officer doesn't have to individually sit and type that manual handwritten letter into the system. So this enables kind of like a faster process to review and set up data in the system versus having to do it manually. One additional option that I wanted the other option that we had talked about before is integrating to third-party systems. So for example, you can set up DocuSign, which allows you to set up documents that can be sent to customers to get their digital signature. So instead of having a digital signature online, if you have DocuSign already, that is something that your organization uses, we can integrate with DocuSign and set it up such that set up templates such that there is an option to get your clients to sign via DocuSign, and then as create PDFs and download options in terms of maintaining that and adding it to the system, so that it is available for the user after the digital signature is done. Then we have something called as the adjudicator process. Now, in terms of adjudication, it's something called as kind of like a digital jury representation for assessing submissions. So I showed you the review process where one reviewer did a submission review, but you can also set it up to have like kind of like a round table of jurors looking at the submission. So in this case, what I've done is we have a jury set up for adjudication. We have a meeting set up for Wednesday morning in April, and we've set up a couple of adjudicators. They go into the portal, they sign the conflict of interest agreement, saying they do not have any conflict of interest. And then once that conflict of interest is submitted, they have the access to the submission, and then they can confirm that they are willing to provide their review and view the submissions and submit their review through this jury adjudication process. Another thing that I wanted to show you today is a copy of a previous application. So a lot of times there may be applicants who come in multiple times each year to provide their information for funding programs. So what they can do is, instead of starting from scratch all the way, there are options for certain programs that can be set up where they can copy the previous application that was provided and use that application to provide a pre-filled application form, which can then be reviewed and then resubmitted after declaring that this is a new application submission. So in this case, I have this application from 2021 being copied, where it actually provides the information related to the copy because it is pre-filled. The applicant doesn't have to provide that information, and a lot of the information can be set up to be read-only, where they don't have the option to change that information. But there are certain fields that you require. I'm just going to pause this here a second. that a lot of the information will need to be redone because it's a new annual period and you want the confirmation to be done again. So that was through the portal. We have something called as the copy in the backend as well, where if the program officer would like to send the applicant a second version of the application where they're requesting for more information, they can use something called as the flow to create a second version. As you can see, there is a submitted and there is an incomplete version. So this allows for a copy as well, where it doesn't have to start from scratch, but there is a pre-filled application already provided. And then there's something called as a notification center that I'd mentioned before. So applicants on the portal can have information provided to them without having to look through emails, or if it's like a quick reminder to the applicant saying, hey, please go and check this. This information is important. So the program officer has the option to provide a manual notification set up where they set it up and the applicant goes into the portal and sees that notification. But there is also an option where you can have the system trigger and a notification automatically. So instead of the program officer manually adding this notification, what can happen is the system can have it automatically triggered based on, for example, the status of a decision or the funding program agreement or things like that, which can then be set up to enable the notification on the portal. And another feature that we have is something called as the structured Excel template, where it can be imported. So a lot of times what happens is you need to provide financial information, or the applicant needs to provide financial information that can be like rows and rows of information. So instead of manually clicking create multiple times and providing like 10 different rows of information, we have the option to say, why don't you export this template and fill that out and then import it again. So once it's imported, it actually fills in the subgrid for you so that you don't have to click each and every value manually and do it through that process. So it helps with a lot of efficiency in terms of the applicant having to fill in that information. And then once they fill it in, as you can see, there's the edit and the delete option. If they want to change the value that's added or deleted, they have that option as well. And then one last option from an AI perspective that we wanted to show you is the rental document data extraction. So this may not widely be used in granting management, but there are certain elements in terms of maybe invoicing where there's certain invoices information that's stored in the system. There's certain fields that you would like to maintain in CRM, for example. And what we can do is we can load up the invoice or the rental agreement in this case from a PDF and have the fields automatically populated in the system through the AI model that's set up. And as you can see, there's a confidence level. So a confidence level is defined as how close is the information that came in applicable to that particular field. So in this case, the confidence level is high because the confidence level is between 0 and 1. 0.9 would be a high confidence, whereas 0.4 would be fairly low. That covers the main features we had for Grant Plus as we have in our system existing, but we do have like a roadmap of features that we are looking at to improve upon improve our system in the next year, especially in terms of what we've gotten as feedback from our clients based on the different options that they've been using in the past few years, but also what Microsoft is also enhancing in the system. So Microsoft has been bringing out a lot of new features lately, especially in relation to AI and using Copilot. That is something that is used. And then a lot of UI improvements. The system that I showed you today was had a latest release on October 1st, which improved the UI a lot from a program officer perspective. And then we also have other elements that we as an organization would also like to implement based on our customer feedback. And a lot of that has been provided in this roadmap. And then we also are looking at other options in terms of AI features where we want to improve upon the efficiency or the rate of manual work that is done from a program officer's perspective. So we have more evolved chatbots that we are looking into. We are looking into pre-populating case files with applications and emails. We're looking at an automated assessment of grant applications. So for example, the AI model can set up and say, hey, this grant application will pass the assessment versus it will not because of certain information that has been provided. And then also maybe generating case summaries automatically. So instead of the program officer having to do the case summary manually, AI maybe we can set up to have the case summaries generated automatically so that it can be made available to the user, to the program officer, who can then review it and make amendments as needed. So that covers our webinar for today. I'd like to just mention that this is our contact information. If you would like to contact us at any point in time, you can email us. Melanie is available, and also Michael's email was also provided. You can also telephone us or visit our website at eperformanceinc.com, and we can help you as needed. I believe we are close to finishing time. So, but if anyone has any questions that have not been answered via chat, please raise your hand and we can give you the option to ask.
There were some great questions during the conversation, Divya, and I think all of them got answered. But yeah, very good questions all throughout the process.
All right, awesome. I'll probably say we can give you your 4 minutes back. Thank you so much for attending today. And what we'll do is we will be storing this recording in our YouTube website and sending it across. I just noticed that one more question came in. When working
I can answer
okay, perfect.
That if you'd like. So just the nature and way that CRM Dynamics, which is basically the backend system, works, we don't hide any of our proprietary information. We can provide you with everything that we have. We do, for those of you who are a little more technical, some of the configurations are transferred to the system via what is called a solution, and that solution can be managed or unmanaged. We do provide managed solutions, and what that does is it allows us to control the versions and to know what features and functionality that you have. The nice thing that we do with our solutions that are managed is we don't limit your access to the actual configurations within them. That means you can spin up your own solutions and you can add in anything from our solutions into them. So we don't lock that down. It is a piece of functionality that Microsoft does have, but we actually don't do that. So yeah, you have the complete freedom to take it and move on.
Thank you, Todd. And I believe there was one more question here. What is the government website for this grant? So the grant system or the sample program that I showed you, there is no government website because it was just a sample program we set up. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but it was just something that we set up as a demo. From a demo perspective, it is not an actual government granting program at this point in time. How about hosting capacity? Todd? You're on mute.
She's sitting right across from me, so she knows. So just for those people that didn't see my chat message initially, my name is Todd Moore. I am the Director of Product Success here at ePerformance. I'm just in as another attendee. I didn't get the special access permission. What we just displayed to you was a solution that is in the cloud. And what that means is that we can spin up a tenant. So if we do that hosted solution, remember those two costing models that Mike talked about? We could give you access to that tenant. We can manage that tenant for you. A lot of departments have their own tenant and where they want to do that. If you want to have a shared tenant, then it just becomes a question of what is called a B2C connection. So you can invite users from another organization into your tenant and you can give them access to that specific level of information. There's functionality called role management. So basically what we allowed an individual to do is they can come in and they can actually access some of the information that is pertaining to their role. We also have the ability to do what is called business units, so we can segregate information. So departments can come in and only see information related to their department. If there wants to be a share cost in terms of that tenant, they can absolutely do that. So, you know, Department 1 will see Department 1's information, and Department Prime will see Department Prime's information, and never the two shall intersect because there are security checks enabled. Does that answer your question? Hopefully. Perfect.
All right, I think that is it. Thank you everyone for attending today. We will be sending out the video recording and slide deck shortly, and hope to see you again soon in a future webinar. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.